Welcome to the space for transformational leaders to unleash their magic, see better client results, work lighter, and live source. Hello and welcome to today's Certified Source Leader interview. I am here with Wendy Lee, founder of LeadHERship Revolution. We're going to learn all about that in just a minute. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, Darla. Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you, especially coming right off a retreat.
I know. Wendy and I were just together live. She has been a mentor within our certification program, supporting our clients as they go through their journey to become source leaders. So we were just together live on retreat recently. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm super excited.
So Wendy is the founder of LeadHERship Revolution. She has a beautiful gift for you about vulnerability and the power of bringing vulnerability forward as a leader. Her background is in human resources as a vice president at one of the local home builders in Houston. Are they local, regional, national?
They're regional. They're in about 6 different areas.
Okay. And leaving your corporate gig and kind of being at the top of your game to step into this work as a coach and a founder, what has that been like for you?
Everything, every emotion you can imagine, the ups and the downs, and but never have I ever thought that it was the wrong direction to go. You pick your environments with where you are in life. So when I was on my corporate journey, it was a perfect fit for me. It was a great place for me to follow the rules and have some structure that made me feel safe, and get to prove my little butt off in my people pleaser self, which landed me at the top of my game. So I really don't have anything like it's a bad experience about corporate. In fact, it is what helped to introduce me and get to know myself too, to the concept of, hey, we can be in any environment, right? And be this leader, but in a new way. Because I actually got my transformation while I was still in corporate. I didn't leave because it was bad or I was fed up. It was because I changed and I wanted to expand this transformation and this experience that I had. It's kind of like, I want everybody to get this. Like, if everybody can just get a little taste of it, imagine what that would do for leadership, for women, for the world, for everybody. It's just this outward spiral.
Okay, so you're using the word transformation, which, our channel is all about being a home for transformational leaders. So most likely people watching know what that means. And, we define it as creating a new awareness that permanently shifts how you show up to life. How do you define transformation, or what happened for you that you would say, okay, I transformed and other people need to know this?
I think for me, what it means is that I had available to me choices that I never thought I had. Before that, it felt like my mindset was very fixed and there was only one way to be, and that was completely in my default mode. It wasn't really my true self. But when I realized, oh, wow, I can actually, because I am looking inward and taking the time to put in the energy to transform some of those patterns that aren't me. Now I have this whole basket full of opportunities that maybe I didn't see before. And that almost feels like a miracle, right? Like seeing something and then being able to access it and have like this observer view of myself versus just always being in it and not knowing, like sleepwalking through it.
I love that. I have available to me choices I never thought I'd have. Creating, shifting something. So you shift how you show up. Why do we do that? So we have choices that are different than maybe we assumed based on our childhood or our upbringing. And, you know, you and I both experienced a lot of things in childhood that we wouldn't want other people to have to go through. And we also know people who have, you know, idyllic childhoods or, you know, have a lot of wealth or a lot of opportunity in their life. They're also limited and missing or wishing for having choices that they didn't think that they had. So I love that definition of transformation.
Yeah, I feel like there's a piece in there that you don't have to have this huge tragic life to want to transform. I can almost guarantee that everybody in their lifetime, especially when you're a child, has felt like you're not safe, like you don't belong, like you're not lovable. And then with your little teeny brain, you make assessment of what that means from your caretaker's point of view. And from there, then you're constantly changing who you are because you need to get your needs met by maybe individuals that don't know how or don't have access to. So I think it's important for everybody to know that there's something there for us in transformation. And whatever that means for you, if you're finding that your soul is, I call it irritated, or you just have that knowing, like you just feel disconnected, or you see that you're doing the same patterns over and over and it's not for your highest good, there's probably something that needs to go and be excavated.
Yes.
So that's why I love retreats and transformation, because it can hold that safe space for you then to see it from new eyes, the transformation part, right? And maybe attach some feelings to it that are the real feelings so that you can get those feelings up and out. Because when we don't express that, then we depress it down, and then we can find ourselves in trouble or in spaces that just don't feel right.
I want to come back to expressing feelings in just a moment. And I want to ask a couple questions that I ask everybody. And the first is, what does being sourced or being a sourced leader mean to you?
I always think about the time when I actually decided to make the change of leaving the corporate world, because up to that point, I was definitely from the neck up. I was totally in my uber masculine. Like it was all about how much I could accomplish, what I could get done, and all of my worth was wrapped up in that piece. And, you know, I kind of went through a life change, and I went on retreat. It just so happened you were on that retreat too.
We were neighbors.
I know, we were neighbors, and who knew almost 10 years now, the transformation we would be on our journeys.
Yes.
But it was at that retreat that I heard about feminine and masculine energy. And I was like, it just really just turned on a light for me inside, that I was putting that side, that part of me, that feminine side, I wasn't even tapping into it. And so I literally felt it in my heart, right? Like when they were talking about it, I was like, oh, that's really a big part of me. And I don't know if this is the right word, but this is coming through. It was like something that I was longing for, but I didn't know existed. And so I started like just being curious about it and inviting it in, and started showing up in my work arena as the head of HR, more feminine, which seemed a little counterintuitive, but I was getting this sourced hit, this all-knowing hit, that this is what I'm supposed to be leaning into. And the more I did that, the more people would reveal their true selves to me, because I was showing up as my true self.
Wendy, I'm having so many thoughts pinging because we were neighbors on retreat. And I remember when I think about, I really enjoyed getting to know you, and I felt like totally resonant with you when we were next to each other. I know you felt introverted. But what I think of is you had like your green army green hat, and I think you wore mostly t-shirts, and so like now you wear pink often, and it just struck me like, oh yeah, you probably weren't wearing pink back then.
I think I did have some flowery things, but I was definitely in my masculine. Like, I didn't even want to room with anybody because I was going to be super independent. And I was coming to this thing. I was going to go do the thing, get the whatevers. And little did I know what was in store for me. So, the part of being sourced is that source will keep trying to get our attention and move us where we need to be. And sometimes we don't even understand or realize until we do.
And I love that when you heard that, you let it in and you let yourself go home and start being different.
Yeah, it was kind of like, I don't want to say I didn't have a choice, but now that I had access to this new information, I was like, I want to try this on. And you talked about what I was wearing. I literally wore a dress that had pink flowers and green print when I came back from the retreat. And people were like, I don't know what it is, but there's something different about you.
Yes.
And they even said it in a kind of loving way that you did, that, I was neighbors and I really enjoyed you, which yes, but one person said it perfectly. You've always been a good supporter and a boss, but sometimes you felt like you were kind of like had your hand out like this. And that's not what was going on in my heart, but that's what my actions were saying.
Wow. Okay, that's really powerful. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah.
Second question. I envision a world where, I always say it's like you see everybody going around with their sourced t-shirts, and you look at someone and okay, they're tuned into their inner knowing, they're on their own journey, and you're seeing these people everywhere. What changes in the world when everybody is sourced?
Yeah, the first thing that I think of, because I do have my sourced t-shirt, I didn't wear it today, but you start finding yourself in conversations about transformation and feminine and masculine energy. Like you just start, when you're in that vibration, you start noticing that other people are having those conversations too, because you're showing up. Like it's not something that's hidden, it's just part of it. And I think the biggest gift is, at least this has been my experience, once it happened to me, it wasn't like I had to go and wave this big flag. My energy spoke for itself, and other people leaned in with curiosity. Because I saw myself differently, I had more compassion for myself. I had more understanding for myself, for all the crazy things that I did in a response or reaction to the trauma I went through. And trust me, there was some crazy ass shit that I did, right? But now I could see that in other people. So instead of them being a threat or something was wrong with them, it was like this exchange of compassion. And I think that's really what adds to that ripple effect.
Wow. You said my energy spoke for itself. Well, first of all, you said once it happened to me. I love that. Like, it just happened to me. No, you committed and
I did some work.
Received some truth and you walked that hard path, and then it happens, right? But
Punch
it really does. Yes. Yeah. But it does shift our energy, right? My book is Shift the Field. Like it really shifts our energy field. Yes. And then what comes in changes, what we notice changes, and the conversation changes. And it's not, sometimes we have to risk. Part of the new energy is risking to say the thing or be, have different conversations, but it's energy first, and the opportunities start to show up to have those different conversations.
Yeah.
I want I want to go back to here you are, head of HR, go on retreat, come back wearing floral. And people are saying, oh yeah, you would be like this. And you said that didn't match what was in my heart. And one of the things I love about your story, and that is so inspiring to me, is when you talk about how you actually changed right there in your job and started doing things different.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, having come from corporate, I think of HR as having a lot of rules, a lot of, procedures and paperwork. And then there's the human in human resources. So what happened when you went from kind of pushing, keeping a distance to letting your heart lead?
Yeah, and it wasn't like an all-in thing, right? It was a process, and it was kind of like just showing up and, being led by source is really what it was. But I think the biggest thing that changed is I was willing to risk, because I didn't know I was taking a risk. I just knew that whatever was in my heart, because I would guess that most people that are listening to this or that are going to be drawn to this, we have big old hearts. But sometimes the things that happen to us in life shuts that part of our energy down. And what we really want is just to just give, right? But wasn't it ironic that I wound up in a department where is all these rules and you got to be buttoned up and, whatever it is that creates that from flowing. I didn't have a choice, because I also had this gift of knowing. And so a big part of my job was doing employee relations. And I'd have people come into my office with whatever. The manager was like, this person isn't doing their job right, or they're missing work. And I already knew that it's because they didn't have something from their past that was cleared out. I just knew it. And so I just started being more vulnerable at work and leaning in, asking for permission, telling pieces of my story, not all of my story, and just taking a chance, because I didn't feel like there was anything else I could do at that point. And I had 6 women that had divulged to me their experience, particularly with sexual abuse. I'm a sexual abuse survivor. I don't even like that word survivor. Survivor sounds like you're still fighting. It's way more than that. And I could see by their actions, I knew that they were just being reactive in the situation. They didn't know how to speak their truth. And by me just seeing that and then just saying the truth of what I saw in a kind way, I wanted to do it in a way that was compassionate. To see, in one case, a 65-year-old woman express something that she has been holding on her whole life, I knew that these conversations need to be had more and more often. And so I started sneaking things into the new employee orientation. We started talking about emotional intelligence. We started talking about, taking ownership of ourselves at work, but I was really like talking about the whole thing. And I just kept trying and just showing up. And I wouldn't say the word trust, because it took me a while to trust myself. I'm still working on that in pieces, but I just was drawn to it. And so the more I got back, I was like, oh, I'm on the right path here. And then I just got to the conclusion that this container, being in the corporate world, was not going to be able to allow me to be fully expressed. There's certain things you can't do at corporate, no matter what. So I made the decision, and it was not a hard decision. I knew that's what I was going to do. And of course, I also got support, a lot of support from you, Darla, but just in general. I went from being like super independent to interdependent and getting into community and not feeling like the soul, I've got to take this on all by myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you left and started LeadHERship Revolution, her with an HER. And I got the pleasure of hearing your first signature talk about masculine and feminine energy and being in the wounded feminine. And it's really evolved. And you currently do work on how to hustle healthy for women leaders. Share a little bit about LeadHERship Revolution and why it's so close to your heart.
Yeah, I remember exactly when I came up with the name, because I left my corporate job and then it was like, now what? I didn't have all these people around me. I didn't have these responsibilities. Luckily I got in a container right away. But I let the word come to me. And I knew I wanted to do something about leadership, but in a new way, in a fresh way, in this way that doesn't have anything to do with how much we can do or give of ourselves, but who we are. Like that's the highest thing that matters. And what I found.
Wait. I feel like we need to hear more about that.
Okay.
So
yeah.
Not how much we can do or give of ourselves. Why is that a thing? And I'm assuming you mean for women specifically.
Yes. And I mean for women, but men and women, we all downplay our feminine energy, especially when we're in the typical leader role. We'll outline it that way. But what I mean by that is, I noticed for myself, and I noticed a lot of people, not just in corporate, but even entrepreneurs, that there was this exchange, meaning I'm not valuable and I'm not worthy unless I'm doing this thing to depletion, unless I'm giving all of myself in a way that's not healthy. And that's kind of how it's structured, right? The more we give, the more hours we put in. It's almost like a badge of honor of how much we're in the trenches and just giving to nothing, to a nub, right? Except for that's not how we're designed. I have this saying that I'm saying recently about hustling, right? Because in essence, we are hustling for our worth. Hey, look at me. Am I worthy enough for you? Instead of, no, I am already worthy as I am. Anywhere on the journey. I don't have to be healed. I don't have to have it all figured out. And I don't have to give to depletion. Because the one thing that I know for truth is that hustling is not sexy, right? Kind of seems sexy, like, oh man, there's hashtags for hustle.
I'm a
right?
hustler.
I'm a hustler. I'm a hustler, baby. It's like it's glamorized. And it's even glamorized that not only am I a hustler, but I'm doing this thing by myself. I don't need any help. I don't need anybody. But it's not sexy. And I will tell you from experience, it is not sustainable. So at some point, something's going to give. And more than likely, it's you, because you have given to depletion. And my whole thing about LeadHERship Revolution is, what if we totally reimagine leadership? Like, what if leadership isn't even about, I'm the leader of a company or these are my employees? What if it's wherever I am, I'm the leader of my life, of my relationships, of the work I want to do in the world, of the impact I want to have in the world, because I've been given this sign or calling, and just being myself. It doesn't even have to be attached to work. What if I have this exchange with people that I see and I make this connection with somebody because I can see them and they can see me and we connect on a heart level? So it's reimagining, and that's what the revolutionary part is. It's not a fight. It's doing these seemingly small things to make this big impact. That feels like the revolution to me. Yeah.
I love that. I just heard it differently too, Wendy. Be the lead her, like the lead woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
you get to decide. You really do. I know. I've been there a million times and I'll probably be there another million times. Sometimes we just feel like we don't have control or ownership over our lives. And I bet you in your childhood, you didn't. We
Yeah.
all have experienced where we felt powerless. I get that. And that's why this work of transformation is so important, because right on the other side is the freedom. And it's not really the freedom from not ever having pain or discomfort. So you can sit in that and know that it's energy and know that it's still trying to tell you that maybe there's something needs a little compassion or needs a little love, or you need to reconnect with your community. So it just feels like there's so much more available. And then really owning and claiming that you have a right and you deserve, you're deserving, and you're worthy, just as you are.
Wendy,
Yeah.
what do you notice gets in the way for people? So they might be all about, I'm owning it, and then something gets in the way. What happens?
Yeah. And it's going to happen to all of us, no matter what part of the journey we are on, whether we're newbies or we've been doing it for a while. It's easy to get back in the groove of the old thinking. I mean, you have to realize that thinking was programmed not only for such a long time, but at such a critical point of our development. So in essence, when these things happen to us, we get into a state of arrested development. And so we really are in survival mode from that point. We don't start off, this is coming through good. We don't start off being the victim of our life. Something happens. We get victimized, meaning we don't have our basic needs met. We then respond with victim eyes. So we see the world in this way, and we think we don't have any choices. And when that is so deep in, some of this stuff, like some of the threads in my life, boy, that stuff goes down to the marrow of my bones. It is just in there deep. And so finding the safety in order to lovingly and compassionately look at that, what gets in the way is we listen to the old talk, right? We try to maybe negotiate with it on our own. We know it's a pattern, but we're like, I've already did that one. I already went through that part of that. I'm healed from it, so it can't be coming in, right? I just experienced this myself, where I found myself in a state of depression. And what I realized is that when I don't fully are in my expression, then I tend to go back into depression, which is just a safe cocoon. So it's easy to go back into it, and you don't have to stay there as long, and it doesn't have to be so strong. That's the difference. That's why it's good to know who those people are in your life that can say, hey, I need some help, and stay connected with a community that understands what this is all about. Because it's easy. We all do that. And by the way, whatever's still inside, oh, here it comes. Something's going to show up to reflect what's still inside. Yes. And you know what I think about that, Darla, is that thank you, soul. Because if it gave it to us all at once, we could not process that.
Thank you, soul, for the spirals, right?
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Thank you for giving it to us as we can take it in, as we can process it, as we're in the right place, whatever that means, as we get placed in front of somebody that can show us something that we can't see. Can you imagine having to have that whole bag of stuff that we've carried around and developed and have to deal with that in all in one sitting? That's
Well,
a
and
lot.
this is where we think about, I say one container, one transformation,
Mhm.
not like it's a hard and fast rule, because,
Yeah.
and we say a transformation is a new awareness where you
Yeah.
take something out of your bag and go, whoa, I didn't know that was running the show. And I'm going to use your words, limiting my choices.
Right.
I didn't know. Okay. Now what? Do I want to keep it? Do I want to do something else with it? Do I want to let it go? And then we have new choices available. And then there'll be, okay, here's another one, right? Let's take that out.
Yeah.
And so we say one container, one transformation for that reason, right? We don't need to see all the things all at once. And I don't know if you've ever felt this, Wendy, but for sure, I was very much in a place of, I want to know all the things right now so I can be fixed and never have problems again.
Of course, that's how our little masculine brain works. We've solved the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Except for that's not how our heart works.
And it's really not the goal.
No. And even when I am on this journey for myself and for others with the clients that I serve, my goal is I don't not want them to suffer and go through the things. Like, I know that there's been a time where I'm like, I just want people to get this message so they don't have to go through what I went through. That's really not what the desire is. The desire is everything in our life really does help us see the truth. And some of those truths come no other way but delivered that way. Now, I do believe that now I'm at a point where the suffering can be optional, meaning you don't have to sit in the suffering of it, right? Because I understand that it's the energy that needs to move through,
right,
and be loved on. But it's not this thing that we get to that's a finite. We're healed, because in that statement, that means inherently something's wrong with us and we need to be fixed. Yeah. And I don't think even in the sourced realm, that's what we talk about in transformation.
No. And the only reason we suffer is because we think this thing that we can't see about ourselves is shameful. That's why we hid it. And so this process, we can suffer a lot about it when we see, oh my goodness, I've been pushing people away.
Yeah.
I relate to that. I've been keeping a distance. I've been, being smart or hustling or overdoing to get love.
Yes.
And that's embarrassing and shameful. And I don't want to look at that. So I'm going to just keep that out of view and keep going, right? So I can survive. And when we can say, oh my gosh, isn't that cute? We've taken to saying, oh, look at our cute little human. Our cute little human is, trying to be helpful again. And that's my thing on our team. It's like, oh, look at me trying to be helpful. And I start doing other people's jobs and they're like, back off. So the suffering is when we feel shame about our pattern, as opposed to just really like, wow, look at us being humans doing life together.
I think there's a component of shame, and I think there's a component, which is not a truth, but it feels like it, that I'm the only one that feels this way or goes through this. That's why the power in the container, and why I love to do group things, is that you can see that we are all all of us are going through something of this level. And when you can see a community come together and see yourself and other people, it's just like, oh, I'm not the only one.
Yes.
Remember I told you about those crazy things that I did? There would be times that I would be literally balled up in a corner, screaming and crying, and so loud that I would just be like exhausted and thinking, oh my God, if anybody at work saw me right now, can you imagine the head of HR just totally losing it completely?
I feel like I've heard about you crawling in the bushes too.
Oh, yeah. I've been in bushes. I've been in hiding in my car. Oh yeah. You name it. I've done it in just that panic mode because my nervous system was just so out of control, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot of times why we don't go there, because we don't understand that our nervous system is just asking us to not be at that heightened state. That, yeah, that's really what it is. This is coming full circle now. Why do we go back? Because that heightened state feels familiar. Our nervous system, whatever it was at that state that wasn't loved on or felt safe, we're just reaching back at that energy of what it felt like. Whether it's good for us or not, it's familiar.
Wendy, I love you. Thanks for being here.
I love you too. Mm-hmm.
You've shared stories with us and demonstrated this and talked about how your work changed when you started being more real and just saying the thing. And you talk about vulnerability being an advantage. And I think people can get a sense of that here. You and I talked when we were recently on retreat about, people laying, just expressing what's there and being received and being able to lay it down. And that is healing, and healing is transformation. And we can't do it if we're not vulnerable. Yeah. So do you want to share about why vulnerability is an advantage? And I want to let people know we'll have a link under this video where you can get Wendy's report on this. Yeah,
perfect. And it's so interesting that that's kind of one of my jams, to talk about vulnerability as an advantage, because vulnerability was not, for me, it felt like a total disadvantage, and that I was taken advantage of as a kid, and then repeated those patterns of predator energy throughout my life. So it seems such a contradiction, but it's such a gift. But there's some things to know about vulnerability as your advantage, right? So when you're vulnerable, people can see the real you, right? Everything, all the pieces. So that allows them to be themselves. And there's this automatic connection. We don't have to be in what I call the fake ass in the in-between, right? I knew you liked that one. But it also does need some masculine structure around it. The feminine energy, in order to be vulnerable, needs to feel safe. It needs to be able to relax into something. And so if you're just you're vulnerable, but you're not leaning into and being supported by that masculine energy, which is boundaries, right? Like really knowing what's okay and what's not okay, and then practicing that in safe spaces, then you could find yourself back in the patterns of being taken advantage of. Whether that is you're the one that's always doing all the work for everybody, whether it is somebody crossing the line with you, whether it is as serious as being in sexual situations that you don't want to be in. Whatever level that it is, it's basically not knowing how to say, hey, this is what's good for me. This is what works for me. And having a boundary, not a wall. For years, it was like an all or nothing for me. I had to just put up the wall because I didn't know that I could be, with discernment, the gatekeeper of what comes in and what comes out. And my thread throughout the whole thing was narcissistic energy. So when I was in the vulnerable state without understanding and not having the boundaries, boop, I was a magnet for that. And I signed up for it. So when you're in that safe space, then you have more connection, you have more belonging, you have deeper, richer conversations, right? And then you can be sovereign. It doesn't matter what environment. You could be swimming in a sea of narcissism, my case. And it's not going to, oh, hi, narcissist guy. I'm just going to keep swimming on. So it just gives you
I'm
like,
sure a lot of people are going up. I'll have what she's having.
it takes a while to get there, right? That's why we
Yeah.
got to practice these things. It takes practice.
So in the toolkit, they'll learn more about how to use vulnerability with structure and boundaries and in a way that feels healthy.
Yes. And that's the word.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Yes.
Healthy boundaries.
Beautiful. Thank you. And then when people go get the toolkit, they'll also be on your list so they can be invited to your next workshop. Wendy's been leading Hustle Healthy workshops, and it's really a way for you to bring your, I like this, your lead her forward and let go of, the hustle for hustle's sake.
Yeah, and it really is that. And it's about healing those parts. So I'm doing the workshops, and then I'll be opening a container too for a program so we can learn how to lead from the heart and heal from that hustle, right? Because remember, it's not sexy or sustainable.
Thank you, Wendy. I so appreciate who you are in the world. Thanks for being here. Thanks everyone for watching and listening, and we'll see you in the next interview.